Hello everyone and welcome back. This is the next common step that we all are going to be working on. So as a reminder, if you did follow your instructions correctly from lab assignment number 3, your survey contains questions that evaluate two variables. So variable 1 is, as we have said multiple times, being measured by using questions or items that have been borrowed from already existing surveys or scales or inventories. Whereas variable 2 was a variable for which you had to define your own set of questions, but also your own set of rules as to how would you be computing a variable score. So the majority of you chose to do this by either performing an average or a summation across all the responses that we observed across all questions related to variable 2. That is perfectly fine. That is indeed what was hinted by the instruction file for lab assignment 3. And so in this video, we're going to be covering the steps of how to do that. So we are going to be going back to my standard dataset. I'm going to be using the same one that I just used for the reverse coded question practice, and that's just because it's more generalizable. So as a reminder, each one of you should be working with the one specific toy dataset that better mimics the characteristics of your actual survey. So if you did apply one of the suggested inventories for variable 1, you should not be working with the standard dataset. You should only be working with the standard datasets if you chose a different scale from somewhere else that you found online, or if you happen to accidentally ignore the instructions from lab assignment 3 and design your own set of questions for both variable 1 and 2. So here we're going to talk about how to compute our scores for variable 2. This is again a generic example where we have numeric responses on a scale from 1 to 5. You might have something different. And in here, instead of the actual content of each question, we just have generic names for our set of questions pertaining variable 1, a set of questions pertaining variable 2, and a couple of filler questions very conveniently identified like this. When you actually work with your data set, you would have to actually identify from your questions which one pertain to each group. So to compute our variable 1 score, we might have specific instructions depending on the inventory that we worked on. If you did not, then a suggestion I bring to you is, well, number 1, if you are using an already using scale, please try to look online for specific instructions as to how you're supposed to compute your scores. If you can't find anything, I suggest and then we just go back to our standard strategy of using sums or averages. So I'm going to go all the way back to the last column of our data set, and I'm going to be creating 2 new columns, one for the variable 1 score and one for my variable 2 score. Again, if you did work with an inventory that was recommended, you should already have some values here, and actually your variable 1 score might have a specific name depending on the score you get. Depending on the survey you applied, that's fine. We are going to be focusing on variable 2 today. The very first thing you might want to do, I suggest, and we should already be doing that while computing variable 1 score, is remove or filler questions. So we're going to identify those in our data set and we're going to just delete them because they're just taking space. They're filler questions. They were just there to distract participants, but we are actually not interested in them. So we remove all of them, and now our data set looks much more compressed and nice. And now I'm going to start to compute our variable 2 scores. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify where are those questions. So here I'm going to label them by color. So I'm going to just use a color of a little green color for my variable 1. So I have this one here. This is also variable 1. This is also variable 1. This is also variable 1. Oh, this is also a question for variable 1. This is just the reverse coded one. Did I not reverse code this? I did not reverse code this. Let me fix this. You can see this because there is not an alternative column. So this is marked in red because this is supposed to be reverse coded, but I forgot to save that. So let me give it a go right now. Alrighty, I have finished setting up my data set in a way that it's hopefully going to be intuitive for everyone to understand. So I have signaled in green all questions related to variable 1. I have signaled in purple of questions related to variable 2. In red text to identify the questions that require some reverse coding. And, oh, this is the wrong color. And I have added the specific columns where I have now flipped the interpretation of these columns. So now to compute our variable 2 score, let's say that I want to use an average. So let's say that I want to compute the average across all the responses given. So what I would be doing is I would be doing equal sign average, and then open my parentheses and start calling in all of the columns and rows where I have stored my answers for this particular variable. So I said that purple was variable 2, so I'm going to be calling, for example, for this very first participant, which is stored on column 2. So these all are questions given by the same person. So I'm going to be averaging the responses they gave for all questions related to variable 2. So I'm going to be calling this value here, which is located on cell column H, row 2. Then this value here, which is located on cell L2. Then this value here, I'm going to be choosing, even though this is the one that contains the actual response they gave. As we said, this is a reverse coded question, so I'm actually going to contain or to keep the changed or the flipped value. So I'm going to do P2, then I'm going to do Q2 and R2. And I'll have inputted here all my 5 cells containing the 5 responses for the 5 questions I designed for variable 2. I hit enter, and it automatically is going to tell me an option to autofill. So I can do that option there, and I have automatically collected the mean response that my participants, each one of them, gave to all the questions of variable 2. Now you can see here that we are using an average, but some of you decided to use a sum. So I'm going to do this all over again. So let's say that instead of summarizing the responses that I got for my variable 2 by using the average, I instead want to use the sum of all the scores or all the responses that I observed. So what I'm going to be doing is, again, I'm going to call my Excel function equals sum, that calls the sum. And again, I'm going to specify the cells that contains the answers for this variable. So I have the exact same cells as last time. So I have the sum of cell H2, the sum of cell L2, the sum of cell P2 that contains the reverse values for the reverse coded questions, the cell Q2, and the cell R2. So I do this, I close my parentheses, hit enter, and again, it suggests me to autofill, and I have automatically computed all of my scores for my variable 2 for each individual person. Now, what happens if you accidentally panic and you didn't click on the auto refill option? Well, there's no need to panic. We just go back here to this very first cell that contains the formula that we used. We're just going to drag this little button here on the bottom right corner, and we're going to drag it down, and it automatically applies the same formula here. Now, for those of you that did not or were not able to follow up any of the specific instructions that I prepare for your variable 1 scores, that is perfectly fine. What I suggest you do here is you replicate these steps and either take the average or the sum for now the responses that pertain to your variable 1. So we will be doing exactly the same, but this time we would only be considering the response located in the in the green cells that I have located here, which are the ones that contain the responses for my variable 1 questions. So let me actually just do the exercise here. I'm going to be preserving also the sums for my variable 1 questions. This would take 1 second. So here I have it. I have also used my sum formula here to compute the sum of all the scores that I obtained across my different variable 1 questions. And now using these 2 columns here that summarize my scores for my variable 1 and 2, I'm going to be able to start doing my data analysis. And that is what we're going to be doing on the next video.